of Z89 is reserved for those people that have gone above and beyond the pale in their time here as a student and their time as an alum enriching the association. And so we are very happy and proud to increase the number of Hall of Famers by 2 this year. And the first gentleman to be inducted will be inducted and introduced by a very dear friend of the association and a very dear friend of mine, our class of 1995, Jenny Connor, ladies and gentlemen.
Broadcasters.
Give us the story, baby.
I think I will, Professor. So a big part of the reason that I'm here today is obviously Matt Friedman, both for being involved with the station and to induct him into the Hall of Fame. But one of the reasons I almost wasn't here is also because of Matt Friedman. This dates to a number of years ago. Let me start with that second part. Many of you may not know this, but Z89 was not Matt's only activity in Syracuse. It was also a fraternity named Theta Chi.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
I didn't know that.
So Matt was part of Theta Chi, and I happened to be my freshman year dating a boy in Theta Chi, so I happened to be spending a lot of time there. And I'm pretty sure when my first interactions with Matt was not over radio. It was actually when he was serving me punch out of a garbage can. It was a red Solo cup. Not so much different from the ones on that table right now. I prefer not to think about exactly what strain or strains of durable diseases were also hanging out in that red Solo cup, but miraculously somehow I did not succumb to them, and I'm here today to induct my dear friend Matt Friedman into the Hall of Fame. So allow me to start by saying, when I think of Matt, one word comes to mind of things that he might represent or he might be part of, and that word, and this is in all seriousness, is wisdom. Matt is one of the wisest people I know, and one of the smartest people I know when it comes to anything radio, broadcast, media, and generally about life. The wisdom of Friedman is vast and deep. Matt has taught me a lot over the years, from the professional, example, the power of PR, baby, to the grammatical, the plural of folk, for those of you who are wondering, folk. Yep. To those simple lessons in life, example of that, a couple of years ago, and seeing some scantily clad students walk down M Street, all I heard was Matt next to me utter a deep sigh and just say, why, oh why, were giant baggy plaid shirts and turtlenecks in fashion when I was in college? Here, here. And then there's the coaching and the dialect that is WJPZ. Along with the correct usage of folk, Matt has taught me that it's absolutely appropriate to slip the words radio or major market into any conversation. An example, hey, you had a baby, radio! You won the lottery, that's major market. They're giving away free wings at Chuck's, that's major market radio, baby! But the best part of Friedman and his wisdom is how very generous he is with it, with so many of us, both of the people who are here in this room and far beyond. Matt, as you may know, is a friend to those of us who went to school with him, but also many, many people who have gone on since, and students who came long after him who now call him mentor and friend. So it's with that in mind that I figured the only way to do an introduction justice was to put my reporter hat on and tap into the power of the radio masses. Matt, as you heard from whatever mole spilled the beans, thank you very much. I did some asking around from the many people who guided you through the years, both from those who were in school and those who came way after us. This is an abridged summary of the pieces of wisdom that they had to share. So a couple bullet points. First, good relationships are the lifeblood of success. Second, it's an insult to the city of Syracuse to not go to the dinosaur barbecue at least 3 times during your visit. 3, rehearsal dinners may not be the best place to reveal publicly that the couple about to get married may or may not have had their first kiss after one too many drinks at the banquet. 4, words are a powerful tool, for good or for bad. Use them wisely. 5, and this is tough being an East Coaster, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Midwest is the greatest part of this great land, no question. 6, smart people can go far in the news business, and some of the smartest people also get out. 7, taking your picture with a $100 bill is an absolute must. This is to be followed by the very important point number 8, however. It is also an absolute must not to refer to said picture as the money shot. finally, well, almost infinitely, putting your hand on one ear and speaking to a visible microphone like that is a perfectly acceptable behavior. And finally, inside jokes often remain the funniest of all, which is what keeps us all coming back every year to this banquet. Matt, you may not remember this, but this is in closing. You may not remember this, but you once made a very huge impression on me. You probably don't even remember what you were saying. It was right after I'd interviewed to become the station vice president of operations. This was a position I probably wasn't qualified for, I was totally nervous about, and kind of went into it blindly. And had no idea if I was going to get it or if I had the chops to do it, if, heaven forbid, I actually did get it. You pulled me aside, perhaps over that garbage can of punch, and I don't remember. And you told me how impressed you were about how well I interviewed and how much you thought I could really do the job very well. You probably may not even remember that, but it made a huge, huge impression on me, because all I could think of was, Matt Friedman thought I was good. He was impressed. And to this day, every time I go in an interview, I often think of you in that conversation. It meant a lot then, and it continues to mean a lot to me now, as well as the dozens of other things you've helped me think through. Career moves, life, and everything that you've always done with laughter, insight, and always a smart-ass attitude. Please join me in welcoming a great dad, husband, colleague, friend, favorite son of Detroit, and all-around wise guy, and I mean that in every sense of the word, my friend, Matt Friedman.
That's why I picked Jen East. Jen wrote a great column for the Washington Business Journal about a year ago after the banquet about how the mistakes she made here and the culture allowed her to make mistakes. So I thought a lot about the mistakes I made at WJPZ, and I was so glad I made them at JPZ and not on the 6 o'clock news or something. And I'm hoping that this speech is not among them. So let's see what we can do here. I do love this event. As you all know, this is my 21st out of 22 possible banquets. So I've been here almost every year since I was a freshman. And there's only one WJPZ. There's no other college radio station in the country that does what we've been doing since the 1970s. And I've worked all over the country, and I talk to people all over the country, and there's nothing else like this. And we have to remember that's because Syracuse University attracts the best, the brightest, and the most motivated communication students in the country. And we need to remember that a strong SU is the only way we get a strong WJPZ. That's why I constantly talk up the school, and I constantly talk up the station. They go hand in hand. And I would never come here for school if not for the station. And I'd like to share with you tonight a story that I've never really told all of before. Some of you have heard bits and pieces, but you never really heard the whole story of how I got to WJPZ, and I wanted to share it here tonight. Syracuse was always my top choice for school because guys I looked up to from my hometown, Scotty Meach, Scott Taylor, and a guy we'll hear from right here next year, soon-to-be Hall of Famer, Larry Barron, they all went here to pursue their broadcasting dreams. Yes, we were all imported from Detroit long before we were lucky enough to go up in and around Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, where there was a community-funded radio station located in the high school, WVFH. Perhaps you've heard of it. I started on the air there as a DJ when I was in 6th grade, and I distinctly remember listening to tapes that Larry Barron sent home. He was taking listener phone calls and talking up songs on a station that was brand new called Z89. And it gave me goosebumps just thinking that someday that could be me. Well, the summer before my senior year of high school, I was working at the summer camp I attended as a kid up in Wisconsin. And a girl came to visit for a weekend to visit her dad, who was a legendary guy at the camp. He was like a Rocco Macrod of the camp. And in those days, while my broadcasting skills may have been ahead of my age, my skills with the ladies, though, not quite there. Despite that, though, the girl and I really hit it off, and we made plans for me to visit her at school in a month or two. She was going to be a freshman at Syracuse, which, of course, was my first choice school. It was great. So we got home, we talked on the phone every day, and we did something that the students may not know even existed. We wrote each other letters through the mail. I had big hopes for the girl, I had big hopes for the school. We made plans for me to travel to SU in October, November for my college visit and a weekend together. But when I arrived at her dorm room at Sadler, instead of a kiss at the door, there was a sleeping bag on the floor waiting for me. To put it simply, and in terms that this group will no doubt understand, that girl gave me the zig. But I had plans to meet Scott Taylor in the morning for my tour of Z89. So I went ahead with that, and the first person I saw at the door, when I walked in the door, that door, was Scotty Leach, who I've known since I was 11 years old. And Scotty handed me something, and it was a copy of R&R. That's Radio and Records magazine for the younger members of the audience. It was printed on paper. Inside R&R was an article with a photo about how college kids at WJPZ were giving professional stations a run for their money in the ratings. Wow. A station I could work at in a year was in R&R. I was taken by the power of PR, even then. And I walked around the station with Scotty, and I'll never forget this. I saw people I thought were like me working at the station. People who I could tell just loved the stuff. So things didn't work out with the girl, but it was love at first sight with WJPZ. So I came to campus, I started working at the station right away. I felt comfortable right away. It was still hot outside in Syracuse, and I was on the air already. I was a kid who started in radio in the 6th grade, and I was a kid who spent school holidays and weekends hanging out in radio stations, shadowing, asking questions, and learning. I even screened the occasional talk radio phone call. That was fun. I wrote my first lead TV news story when I was 16. It was supposed to be a shadow week, but I was chomping at the bit to contribute and do something to the newscast. So someone who believed in me, my earliest mentor named Murray Feldman in Detroit, he begged forgiveness instead of asking permission of his news director, and he let me write the news. I got to WJPZ, and so many people had stories like this, about starting in the business as kids to realize our dreams as soon as somebody would just say yes and let us. And so right away I was welcomed as one of them at WJPZ. I got involved in news and sports, was quickly drawn to news, and guys like Dave Roberts and Dana Dieterle took me in right away because they saw me as one of them. I helped run the department of almost 50 people. We had a news department of almost 50 people. We were on the air in almost every day part, 7 days a week, and I became close friends with those guys instantly. As a freshman, seniors like Hal Rood and Brian Lapis saw me as one of them, and they went out of their way to befriend me. Now, Hal would go on to later be a business client of mine. And of course, Lapis would later go on to be the drunkest person at my wedding. So I think at the talent level, all the people I worked with alongside at WJPZ, it's staggering to think that there was so much talent in that tiny space. People I'm proud to call my friends and keep a part of my life: Dave and Beth Gorath, Adam and Kelly Foster Shapiro, Chris Velarde, all the talent that America sees and hears on airwaves and online and in power positions behind the scenes every day and all over the country. We were all together at the same time, and it was incredible. The learning experiences I gained at the station paid off in huge ways. I spent the summer before my junior year writing and covering news on the street for pay at a CBS-owned all-news radio station in Detroit, top 10 market. The summer before my senior year, I was on the air there every day. And that's because of the way I learned how to write and communicate and work with people at Z89. And those are also the reasons I started my TV career at a #1 station in the top 10 market about a month after graduation. It was because of Z89. Now, here's something you may not know. WJPZ broadened my musical horizons. I came to Syracuse a pure Midwestern rock and roll guy. Grunge was my favorite back then. Sorry, Dion. I have the flannel shirts to prove it. But I have to say, the music that we played back then, it grew on me, and it stuck with me. And now, because of Z89, I routinely get strange looks from people in the suburb where I live as the bass of Dr. Dre and Snoop kicks from my Lincoln sedan as I pull into parking spaces in the strip mall. That's because of Z89. Radio. And we on here. But most of all, what stuck with me has been the culture. Liz talked about this. the culture of constantly learning from each other, having fun whenever possible, and bringing a passion for this infectious business of communications. It's a culture that unites us in generations. It's one of a kind anywhere. And that's why I feel such a connection, as Jen alluded to all the JPZers as they're coming up the ranks. I'm so happy to have built outstanding friendships, bona fide friendships, out of what started as me just giving some casual advice to staff and recent alumni. And that's why it's great to share this evening with several I met that way. Very few I will refer to in their full names. Scotty Mack, Dina, Jag, K. Rich, TJ, and Jeffy K. I didn't go to school with any of them, but I consider them friends from school. And that's because we had the connection here at the radio station. Literally every day, personally or professionally, I think of someone from JPZ or something from JPZ. And literally every day I have contact with someone from this group. Phone, email, text, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. There's nothing like it. It's 7 days a week, and it's a part of my life. So when the idea of a Hall of Fame was being kicked around, I really saw myself as one of those, as many of you are tonight, who would come up here just to see friends get inducted. I never thought I'd be up here, let alone in year 4. I never thought I'd be the first one in the pipeline from Bloomfield Hills to Syracuse up here. I thought inducting Rick a few years ago would be the pinnacle of my alumni experience. But my fellow alumni wanted me here, and I'm so flattered and honored to be here. But I have to say, one of the things I was told as a freshman about the station turned out not to be true. I was told that I would get out of the place what I put into it, and that's not true. Sure, I worked hard, and still in some ways I work for the station. But remember this, I have gotten much, much more out of the experience in return than I ever could have possibly put into it. In my heart, I'm a broadcaster. In my life, I'm a communicator. It's how I've earned every dime of my living, and I can't imagine doing anything else. It's who I am. So thank you, Rick Wright, for answering that knock on your door. I want to thank my parents, Bernie and Rosie Friedman. They allowed me to come to Syracuse, and they supported my career dreams since dropping me off at that first Saturday radio program, that audition, almost 30 years ago. I want to thank my grandparents, who I really miss at happy and emotional times like this. Dave and Ray Friedman, Dick and Evelyn Golston, they filled me with something very important that you need in this business, confidence. I've needed it every day to build this career. Thank you to my wife, Jody. After meeting me on this campus at a house party on Sumner, 20 years ago this August, she still said yes to that first date, even though I was a radio guy. Thank you to my amazing daughters, Jenna and Ellie, for giving me something important, something I love even more than this business. I didn't even think that was possible, and that's being a father. I want to thank my business partner, Don Tanner. He endures my stories of WJPZ. But he also has let the values of this place into our workplace back in Detroit. Don is a broadcaster. He gets it, and that's part of why we get along. So thank you to the entire WJPZ community for honoring me and for keeping this thing going. May the magic of WJPZ live on another 27 years and beyond, because I'm going to paraphrase another guy about my age who grew up in the Detroit area. This is WJPZ, and this is what we do. Thank you.